Stanley Kubrick is probably the best filmmaker of all time. All his films are perfected over many years, and he has created some of the most iconic films of all time. 2001, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and many, many more. However, I want to talk about possibly his most controversial film, Clockwork Orange. Now, I believe this is Kubrick at his most free as a filmmaker. Now, by this point, Kubrick had already proven himself as a director. Lolita, 2001, Doctor Strangelove, the latter of which is also a very controversial film, as it nearly ended his career due to angering many powerful people. However, he did 2001, which is essentially both propaganda and Kubrick making fun of the idea of space travel. Now, he was able to do what he wanted to do, and having been convinced, he decided to adapt Clockwork Orange, the 1962 dystopian novel by Anthony Burgess, which, much like the film, was also controversial in its own right.
If I am responsible for young boys beating up old men or killing old women after having seen the film, then Shakespeare is responsible every time some young man decides to kill his uncle and blames it on Hamlet. Shakespeare, as far as I know, has never been blamed for any of the violence in the world. And for that matter, if we're going to start blaming books, let's start blaming the Bible. The work of art merely takes life as it is and shows life as it is, and that's the end of its duty.
Now, onto the film. Just from the first shot, you can tell this is a bit different and less restricted. And just from the first shot alone, there is quite a lot of detail. For example, all of Alex's drugs are looking straight ahead, like him, except for Dim, signaling to us that he's not the brightest, and Dim also is the only one without something in his eye. Of course, Alex with his eyelash, and George and Pete having bruising around the eye. And then there's the statues they're sitting around, which seem to be some sort of sex slave. Now, the film is filmed with details like this, and I want to talk about the stuff I think is great about it. First off, the cinematography. The film is filled with iconic shots, which are usually shot in a way to convey a sort of triangle or a dominating position, like, of course, this shot. And then there's this shot which you can literally see a literal triangle carved into the wall. Now, what in my opinion makes the film's cinematography great is the uneasiness of it. There are many shots where characters are talking into the camera and looking at the camera, and of course when Alex jumps out the window, which basically they just chucked a camera out the window, increases the uncertainty. And of course the film has lots of varied shots, which even to this day have a unique feel. Next, I want to talk about the sex of the film, which it's filled with. Now, in a lot of Kubrick's films there are themes of sexual violence, of course Lolita being essentially a pedo story. Then there's that weird shot in The Shining with the bear, then there's Full Metal Jacket with the prostitutes, and of course Eyes Wide Shut, which for obvious reasons. And this film has those themes as well. There are Alex's daydreams and the ending of the film, and then there is the fact he rapes the writer's wife and also kills the cat lady with a phallic statue, which he is literally killing someone with essentially his penis. Then there's also the sexual violence towards men in the film, which isn't usually a theme in Kubrick's films. In the film, there's a session with men getting hit with a low blow. Of course, the flat block marina sequence, but then there's Alex hitting Dim in the milk bar, him grabbing the police by the crotch, and of course, Mr. Deltoid towards Alex. Which is strange, as usually in Kubrick films, there is themes of violence towards women more so, which of course are in the film as well. And finally, I want to talk about Alex and hypocrisy. Now, in the book, Alex is of course the unreliable narrator, and then there is some of that in this. However, I believe Kubrick wanted to show that more through Alex's actions rather than his narration. Like the fact Alex seemed to not be affected by the Ludovico technique, given by his ignoring of the picture on the wall and him wanting to punch the lodger. And this fake illness is backed up by Alex shown in the film to be able to fake burps.
Was all your beauty. Who gave you that then? Eh? How'd you do that then? What's up for you, bastard? That.
And other characters in the film are also full of hypocrisy. Of course, Alex literally lying throughout the film, and then there's of course Mr. Deltoid, who talks about corrupt youth and delinquents, despite basically speaking about himself.
We study the problem. We've been studying it for damn well near a century, yes, but we get no further with our studies. You've got a good home here, good loving parents. You've got not too bad of a brain. Is it some devil that crawls inside of you?
And the film, of course, literally ends on a seemingly lie.
I was cured, all right.
I'm singing in the rain.
I think what really sells the film is a terrific performance from Malcolm McDowell, who because of this film was praised and also essentially had a large part of his career ruined due to being typecasted as a villain. The performance just shows how great of an actor he is, despite the fact he was a 27-year-old playing a 17-year-old. You still believe it. And of course, the violence. Now, the film neither really berates nor judges the violence on screen, which some people seem to have a problem with, despite the fact the film, in terms of violence, isn't that grotesque, especially considering movies like The Wild Bunch, which came out earlier and was much more brutal, despite the film was blamed for several crimes, and thus pulled from circulation in the UK until Kubrick's death. And the film's impact cannot be denied. It influenced fashion, films, and even other actors' performances, most famously Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, which was entirely based on Alex. Overall, I just wanted to make a video on the film, which I believe is one of the most unique, one of the best, and to some extent, even one of the funniest films I've ever seen.